All right, good morning. I'm going to start right now. Today is the 2nd of October. It is day 25 of our AWD1000 Web Development Technologies class. All right, and a couple things. I am going to go over the zip file in just a second, but starting this week, we're going to be going over Bootstrap 5. What I'm going to do to help you get hopefully an understanding of Bootstrap 5 is today we're going to go over the PowerPoints I sent you. I'm not a PowerPoint guy, but they were done by a different instructor, and I think they're well done, and they probably won't take not even an hour, I don't think. After we get done with that, I'm going to go back and I'm going to recreate the Rankin AWD Flexbox site that I did last week, but I'm going to redo it as a Bootstrap 5 website. As it says here, you may want to follow along because the project will not be put out there as a GitHub repository. All right. Also, again, two things. First, as it says here, your chapters 11 through 19 written tests and Halloween store examples. And the Halloween store examples, you don't have to do chapter 15. In fact, I think it was just through 14 that you really have to do. 11, 12, 13, and 14. All right. Those are due next Sunday, 10/8. And the other thing that I want to say, and this is not, believe me, this is not directed at any one person because several people fall into what I'm about to mention. All right. One of the things that you're supposed to get out of this class is you're supposed to learn how to use a source control management system like GitHub. Some of you still are turning in your assignments and are not using GitHub. What's going to happen starting now, starting with these assignments that are due here and anything that follows, all right, 5 to 10%, and that's going to be up to me, of the assignment is going to be based on whether or not people turned in things through GitHub. So if you don't, even if you turn it in, but you don't turn it in through GitHub, you're going to lose 5 to 10% on every assignment. I mean, I'm going through here of hundreds already of emails this semester from people sending me stuff, a file here and a file there, and this cannot continue. Some of you may get an email from me today saying you might have to email me back some of the assignments you have because I just can't find them. All right. So with that said, then this Bootstrap 5 zip file, this is what I'm going to start with right now. Now I've got it here as well. There it is, Bootstrap 5 zip, and I'm going to unzip it. There it is, so I can get rid of this one. And there's about 5 or 6 different PowerPoints in here. The first one is pretty long. The rest of them are all fairly short. Now, you're not going to watch this and say, oh, now I understand Bootstrap 100%. All right. But the idea is there's enough good information in here. I think it will help people's understanding. At least that's my hope. All right. So the number one, as it says here, is an intro to Bootstrap. All right. When you get into Bootstrap, this is one of the first screens that you're going to see. Now, notice up here it says currently version 4.5.0. And if we go out right now to getbootstrap.com, oops, well, we have to type it in correctly. This is what we get for an opening screen, so it's different. But the other thing is this, it says we're using version 5.3 now. So when these particular slides were created, it was about a year to a year and a half ago. The information is still relevant, but some of the screens that they show in here may have changed over time, such as the one I just mentioned. All right. Now, if you don't know, Bootstrap was originally called Twitter Bootstrap because it was created by two developers who work for Twitter. All right. As it says, it's become one of the most popular front end frameworks in the world. All right. It's a way that you can use pre-built types of classes, all right, to work with your websites. Idea of mobile first, which is very different. All right. Some of the benefits of Bootstrap, I'm not going to read these to you. One of them I've already mentioned. But again, the idea is it is supposed to help you and your understanding, all right, when you start to create things. Now, a little bit later, after we get done with these 6 sets or whatever they are of Bootstrap, I'm going to show you this. So where is it? Where's now? I can't find it. So I'm going to show you this, and this is that Rankin website, and it's been redone using Bootstrap. Now, it doesn't look exactly the same, all right, but it's got the same information on it. And what you will notice too is that it is responsive. All right, so we're going to go all over all of that. I'm going to build that entire thing for you a little bit later. All right. All right. Now, a couple things when you do this. There are many different ways for you to get Bootstrap. I'm going to quickly show you a couple of them. Now, why am I showing you more than one? Hopefully, it'll make sense why I'm doing what I'm doing as we go into this. All right. So if I go back out here to get Bootstrap and I go to the docs, so I just went to getbootstrap.com and I clicked here where it says docs. Now it says get started with Bootstrap. Now, right here, there's a thing called a quick start. So they give you some steps. They say create a new index.html file and make sure you've got that meta tag for the viewport. All right, that is imperative that you do that for using Bootstrap. Then it says use the Bootstrap. There's 2 files you're going to have to include. All right, one of them is here, and it's the Bootstrap CSS file, and the other one is down here, and it's the Bootstrap JavaScript file. All right. If that's too much, you can always go down here and grab them from here, or you can grab them from here. All right. Like I said, I'm showing you there's a bunch of ways of doing this. All right. Now, sometimes you may want to do other things with Bootstrap that we're not going to talk about at this moment. All right. But if you do, you might have to include a couple more files. That's all I'll say right now. Okay, so again, this is your key to understanding everything that's in here. Okay, so, okay, that's fine. So I come in here and I create a new file and I go and I add these 2 files in it. Am I done now and am I ready to go? Pretty much, yeah. All right. But there are other ways that you can do this too. I've mentioned these before. You can go out to cdnjs.com and you can type in here Bootstrap. All right. And you'll notice when you do, it's going to have a couple Bootstrap files right here. All right. This one, and let's see what that gives us. All right. Bootstrap.min.js. So that's the JavaScript file. I can hit enter here if I want to and put the integrity thing on one line and put the cross origin on one line. Technically, you don't even need the integrity and the cross origin. All right, but that's the Bootstrap JavaScript file. All right, if I go back out there again and I grab the other one that's right here, all right, I'm hoping it's going to be the Bootstrap CSS file. I didn't check this out before we started today. Probably should have. All right. No, they're both Bootstrap JS, but I know that there's other ways that you can get this. Why the heck am I even showing you this? All right, if none of these are even working or whatever, I want to show you that. When you use Bootstrap and you do it from a CDN like this, you can't change the files. So in other words, you're referring to something that's out on the internet. So you cannot change the content of what's in this file or what's in this file. All right. Why would you ever want to go in and change the content? I'm going to tell you right now, and that is you get a certain number of built-in things, including, for example, colors with Bootstrap. Now, for a lot of people, the colors, etc., that you get, they're totally fine. So if I go down here to color, okay, this is way too big, but just so you know, these are some of the colors that you get. You get gray, you get black, you get blue, you get this green, all right, you get red, you get yellow or orange, whatever you want to call that. You get kind of a royal blue, and you get kind of a bleached looking white, all right, and there's white as well. So who cares? These are the colors here. Why am I even telling you that? What if I was creating a site for someone, all right, and let's just pretend for a second that their what they wanted for their backgrounds, etc., wasn't one of these colors. All right. For instance, it was purple. All right. It's going to be a little harder to use a lot of the Bootstrap stuff. But if you could go into those files that I just showed you, in particular, like that CSS file, you could change and you could make the primary color, instead of making it that blue, you could make it purple if you wanted to do that. So there may be a reason for you having to do that. And that's explained in here, but we're not going to be going over it. All right. But these are the different colors that you get out of the box, so to speak. These 8 colors. You're going to see several of them today. All right. Now, that's the biggest reason. There are probably a good 4 or 5 different ways that you can go in and download this stuff. If I click the download button, all right, it says compiled, ready to use compiled code. What is this? This is the same thing that I just showed you on the CDN. All right, what's the difference? If you grab these files and you put those files, let's say you make a CSS folder and you put in your bootstrap.min.css, and you make a JS folder and you put in the Bootstrap JS bundle.js in there, then you don't need an internet connection. So if you know you're going to be working where you may or may not have an internet connection, this is one way you can do this. All right. You can grab the compiled stuff. You can grab the source files themselves. Now, if you grab the source files, you can go in and modify them. All right. And again, there's other ones. This is that CDN that I just mentioned to you. All right. You'll notice when you look in here, there's bootstrap.min.css and there's bootstrap.bundle.min.js. Those are the 2 files that you need to use Bootstrap. In addition, if you want to do things like make your own pop-ups, and what's a pop-up? Have you ever right mouse clicked and had it bring up something? That's kind of a pop-up right there. If you want to create your own, here's a couple more files that you may have to add. All right. Again, there's other CDNs. You can add it if you're the kind of person who's doing a lot of work where you are working with this through server-side JavaScript, you can use NPM. NPM is the Node Package Manager. We're actually going to look at this at the end of the semester, not for this, but um, these are other ways that you can use it. We don't really care about those. We're just going to basically use in here either the CDN that you see right here, all right, or what I showed you before from the docs, where we can grab these two files right here. That should suffice for most, if not everything, that we want to do. All right. Now that was a little longer than I planned, but I just wanted you to know that. All right. One thing I like about these slides, and these were made by a former instructor, Mr. Smith, and he's got links in here for all the stuff. So if you want to see more than what I'm giving you, you can look in there. I just mentioned the compiled CSS for you. Bootstrap has probably hundreds of free themes. Now you can get about 20 or 30 of them here under this thing called bootswatch.com. Why would you want to do that? Well, if you are creating a whole website for somebody and you want to basically make sure that each page has the same look and feel to it, you might want to go in and grab a theme. There are themes out there for free, like I said, hundreds of them. There are themes out there that you have to pay for, hundreds, if not thousands of them. There are people who make a living by doing things like creating themes. All right. Now, read this yourselves, but the bottom line, what's important is down here. And that is that Bootstrap has its own way of starting fresh with a reset or a normalize. So you don't have to add those. You don't have to add your own CSS reset. You don't have to add the Eric Myers CSS reset. You don't have to add normalize.css. You don't have to add any of them. In fact, if you start creating a Bootstrap file and you add those two files that I just showed you, all right, the min.css and the JavaScript bundle.js. If you just add those, and in your body, let's say you put in hello, just the word hello, you're going to notice that it's going to go way up in the upper left-hand corner. There'll be no margin. There'll be no padding, etc., because all that stuff is handled internally through this reboot thing. All right, so installing. This is what I mentioned before. All right, now this is not the newest. Like I said, this is 5.0.1, and I believe that the newest that's in here is the one we just looked at was like 5.3.1. There was a big change in Bootstrap come version 5. Before version 5, there were usually 2 or 3 other files you had to add, including jQuery, which is a JavaScript library. But with Bootstrap 5, you don't need jQuery anymore. The other big thing that Bootstrap 5 did, other than dropping jQuery, is they have also dropped support for Internet Explorer versions 11, 12, and 13. They're expecting that people who are going to use Bootstrap are sophisticated enough that they can get rid of Internet Explorer and use Edge. All right, if that's your browser of choice. Now, I'm going to show you this. It's going to look similar to what we talked about in the past. It's going to look similar to what we talked about in the past with media queries, but these are called breakpoints. All right. So what they're saying here is if you wanted something special to happen and the size of your screen is between 0 pixels, which isn't even possible, and 575 pixels, it's going to be extra small. If it's between 576 and 767 pixels, it's going to be small. If it's between 768 and 991 pixels, it's going to be medium. If it's between 992 and 1199 pixels, it's going to be large. If it's greater, or if it's between 1200 and 1399 pixels, it'll be extra large. And as it says here, this is a new thing. This is for people who have things hooked up to projection units and very large television screens, etc. Now, when you use them in Bootstrap, you don't use these words. You use these words: SM, MD, LG, XL, and XXL. And again, there's a thing down here if you want to see more about it. But it's important, or going to be important, that you realize this. All right. The next thing that's in here, M is margin, P is padding. Notice you get built in for you 6 levels of margin, actually 7, and 6 levels of padding. All right. M0 and P0 are just that. Okay. But it's sort of like working with your headings. But in this case, M1 is going to give you less margin than M5 is. P1 will give you less padding than P5 will. So as they go up, you get more margin or more padding. And also notice there's an M auto, which basically is saying that we want things centered. All right. And again, as always, if you want more, there's more information in here. All right. What side do you want it in? MT is margin top. MB is margin bottom. MX, as they mentioned, is margin left and right. All right. MS actually stands for margin start, and that's left margin. ME stands for margin end, and it's right margin. All right. And you'll notice again, there are shortcuts, and padding works the same way. All right. Horizontal centering, as it says, Bootstrap has an MX Auto class to automatically center things, which is very, very nice if you want something centered on the screen. All right. Now for the viewport, this is the kind of thing that you're going to do. All right. Now this looks really, really ugly. Let's look at this one. It's a little bigger, so let's look at this one. All right. This says M0, which means on very small and small screens, no margin. All right. This one says MD2 right there. MMD2, which, as it says, all right, you want more on a medium screen, more on a large screen, more on an extra large screen. All right. This won't make a lot of sense until you're actually doing them, or until you're actually working with this stuff. All right. Notice you can set widths and you can set max widths in here. All right. You can also set minimum widths. Also, there's a view width and a view height. We've looked at those before. The colors I've already mentioned. Here's what you get. Now they mention in here, it says color palette is defined by theme. If you're using one of the Bootstrap themes, they may have already gone in and changed the primary text color. So rather than it being that royal blue, all right, it might be another color. But these are the colors, as I mentioned previously, that you pretty much get out of the box. And when you look here, because sometimes people get confused, what's the difference between white and light? Light is sort of a bleached out white. Muted is sort of a bleached out dark. Okay. And that's gray, just if you can't tell from here. All right, that's a little bit better picture. You can use these colors all over the place. You can change the color of any control that you put on a form. You can change the color of buttons. You can change the color of text. All right, like I said, just about anything can be changed using these colors. All right, you can change them and put borders around things with these colors. All right. Now, some of the stuff we're used to saying stuff like text align left, text align center, And you'll notice now, all right, basically, they're almost going to be the same thing. All right. In fact, with a lot of the stuff that you use in here, you might look at it and go, geez, I don't get this. I mean, why are we using this? And really, I think that text start means this, text center is this, and text end is this. All right, just like text lowercase is this, it's a little bit of a shortcut. When you put your actual Bootstrap stuff in your code, you're going to be doing it like this. All right. What typically is going to happen, and this almost sounds like, if you remember, one of the things I mentioned to you earlier this semester was we talked about the separation of concerns. We talked about um, putting your CSS in a CSS file, putting your JavaScript in a JavaScript file, etc. Well, now we're going to start breaking some of those rules. All right, because you're going to end up putting a lot of this stuff that you see right here. You're going to end up putting a lot of it right into your different HTML elements, etc. You can use Flexbox with this. Now, there's a lot of slides in here with Flexbox. I used it a little bit on the site that we're going to go over. All right. But what they're saying is now when you see a .d, that's for display. All right. So like all this stuff right here. So .d/flex is replaced to flex, for example. And like I said, there's going to be quite a few slides in here that are going to talk about this. So display, working with the direction, working with breakpoints in here, justifying content, etc. So bottom line is there basically is full support here. All right. So that was the first one. Like I said, that was the long one. Most of these other ones are going to be a lot shorter. Notice that this one has only like 9 slides in it. All right, so we went over the introduction. This is the grid system. There's only 9 slides in here, but what's in here, again, is unbelievably important. And the bottom line is your go-to for thing in here is always getbootstrap.com. All right, that's where this was taken from. So again, with the grid system, what you're going to do is not with everything, but with most everything that you're going to work with, you're going to be using a div that's going to have a class in it called container. All right, as it says, if you want to use the grid system, which we're going to look at in just a moment, you're required to have a container. As they mentioned here, they're used for all your formatting, padding, centering, margin, etc. All right. And it says containers should never be nested. So you should never put a container inside of a container. The whole thing too in here, this we've looked at before, but I want to mention something, and I may have said it before, I don't know if I have or not, but this whole thing, what's going to be important from this whole thing here is it works with a grid system. It works with a concept of 12. What I mean by that is as you go across the screen like this, there are 12 columns. So if I want to put 3 things in a row, 1, 2, 3, I can make each one of them 4 because 3 times 4 is 12. If there's 2 of them, I could make them 6 type of an idea. Now, what if there's 5 of them? They don't have to all be the same size. All right. So for instance, I could make 4 of them, 2, which would be 8, and the 5th one I could make 4, which would still be 12. If I go over, if I make this more than 12, so let's say I make it 13, it's going to wrap and go on to the next line. And you're going to see this as we get going. Okay. Now, notice up on the top there when you look under this, it's got a couple bullets, and one says dot container and one says dot container fluid. All right. I use container, but container fluid typically is greedy. It tries to take up 100% of the room and not provide any padding or margin. All right. So again, these are the sizes. I mentioned these to you before. I'm not going to say it again. All right. But you're going to see this hopefully in action very soon. It may make sense. It may not make sense to you. This is the grid system that I mentioned before. So if you've got it set basically to 12, all right, it's going to take up the entire thing. All right, so that is one item. There's two items, 3, 4, 6, and 12 items. All right. Now, what that means is the way that that is set up typically is for a large screen. So when you start changing it to smaller screens, and if instead of, let's say we get to a point here, and I don't want this to be 2 of 6, I want these to stack. So I've got this one and then this one would go underneath it. That's when you end up using these things that are in here, the different types of classes in here. And there's going to be a couple of examples right here. All right. So we've got a col 4 and a col 8. Two things before that to realize. First of all, since we're working with a grid system, we need a class called container. You can see that right here. All right. And we're working with columns. There's 12 columns in a row. So notice that we've got a row, and the row has in it columns. All right. So this is what the way it's going to look. In other words, by default, column 2 will be twice as wide as column 1 is. All right. Can you change that? Yes. And we're going to look at some of that as we go on. All right. Again, these are those breakpoints that we already talked about. Now, this is a pretty good example because it's showing a responsive grid. All right. What this says is, hey, if I am on a medium device or above, so if this is 768 pixels or more, all right, I want you to display like this. In other words, I want each one of these to take up 4 of 12. So they're the same size, then each taking up a third. However, if it's less than 768, I want you to stack and go like this. Now, what if I wanted it always to look like this, even on really short, small screens? Then I would change this MD here to an SM, meaning from small on, stack them. Now that might look really bad doing it, but I'm just trying to show you that it is possible to do that. All right. This is a little bit more complex example. All right. This says, again, on medium devices and larger, as it says right here, notice there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4 across. So it'll put the first 3, and that's 12, 3 times 4. Then it'll put the next 3. All right. So that's the medium. When you get to an extra large device, extra large, all right, then 2, 4, 6, all right. So put them all on the same row. If it's less than 768, again, stack them. All right. And the best thing I can tell you is to go out to the site here and look at the examples. And then once you're somewhat comfortable with it, go in and take a look at it, create yourself a simple page, and play with it a little bit. All right, that's probably the best way for it to make some sense to you. As it says, there's more examples out there. All right, so that's the second one. Next, our Bootstrap cards. and we're going to actually use cards. In fact, if you look, let's see, I still have that up. When we go over this example, these are cards right here. All right. And who cares? Well, a couple things about them. Okay. Cards can have an image. All right. Cards typically have a title. Cards typically have a body. Now, you can omit these and you can put some of the stuff, you can move stuff around, etc. But one of the things that cards allow you to do, all right, is get some uniformity. And if you look right here, it doesn't, I'm not saying this looks great or anything, but it doesn't look bad either. All right. And they all look the same size, but a certain point in here that instead of being that size, all right, you can see there, that really doesn't look very good. All right. And now you can see what happens as we make it bigger and bigger and bigger. All right. I didn't do a lot of work on the CSS in this when I created it. So there's a lot of work that could still be done on it. It looks okay. All right. I'm not going to lie to you and say, oh, it's fantastic, because it isn't. All right. So where are we? We are by number 3. All right. So again, these are cards. So let's look at what makes up cards. Right? As it says, cards are meant to represent items, period. And they give some examples there. All right. Cards, as it says, provide a flexible and an extensible container that you can use. They have a lot of different things you can do with them. How do you create a card? You create one like this. Notice we have in there 2 divs. One div with a class of card, that's the card itself. One div for the class of card body, and one div for the class of card text. There's even more that you can put in there if you want to or need to, such as, if you look in here, we've got card, and we've got card body, then we've got a card title, and there it is. Then you can even put in a subtitle if you want, and then some text like we see here. All right. And we can, as it says, if you put in a header and you look at the difference, this doesn't have that little box around it like this one does. So this is even more formatted than the other example was. All right. You can also add a footer if you want. This is complete. You can put in a header, a body, and a footer, just like we looked at with tables. All right. So here's one with both. Notice it here. Now we've got a button. Now it won't automatically go somewhere. You have to let it know where you want it to go. But one of the things, and I did not mention this before, we're going to see it, I think, in a later lecture here, is with Bootstrap, you can take a hyperlink and format it as a button. So this could be just a regular hyperlink that has been formatted by adding the button class BTN and then adding the BTN primary. The advantage of that, all right, is, you know as well as I do, that hyperlinks, you can, you've got an href in there. So you can do that here. So if you wanted to make it literally go somewhere, you could do that. Here you can align these in different ways. You can use all the different colors with them. You can, if you're working with images, you can have it on top, on the bottom, in the middle, on the right, on the left, and it's going to show you some of these here. So there was top, there's bottom, there's left, there's right. All right. And again, as it says here, there's even more examples out here. All right. I can't say this to you too many times. And that is, this is what you're typically going to be jumping out to, all right, is going out to the docks and then taking a look at what's out there. All right, let me close a couple of these. All right, working with a nav bar. The nav bar, you know what that means, but it's a bootstrap nav bar. Fortunately, unfortunately, however it is you decide to look at it, in many ways, it's more powerful, but got more that you've got to type in. All right. I'm not going to read a bit of this to you. All right. One of the things that's going to happen when you use a nav bar, if you set it up correctly, and I'm going to show you how to do that, that one of the things that happens when you do that, all right, is it's automatically going to get, when it reaches a certain size, it's going to shrink down and it's going to give you that hamburger menu like we had with Slick Nav. But we don't have to add any Slick Nav. You don't have to write any code to do it. It'll just set it up that way for you by default. All right. So they're showing you some nav bar examples here. Believe it or not, this is a fairly simple example. All right. You'll notice if you look in here, that we've got navbar expand, which basically does say that you want it to take up pretty much the whole screen. All right. We want it to be dark. And it sounds weird. I thought it always did. But when you say navbar dark and then you say BG dark, that means make my navbar dark, but for the text that's in there, make it light. All right. So the brand is, you can put in here, you can put an image. You can put a name, you put text, whatever it is you want to or need to put in here. Then, kind of like we had before, we've got an unordered list. And you'll notice that two things. First, the unordered list has a class of navbar nav. Second, each one of the LIs has a class of nav item. All right. And in there, you can see how this has been set up. All right. For instance, you've got a home. When you click on home, it's supposed to go over to here. All right. And you're going to see this because we're going to do an example of it in just a bit. All right. Now, these are meant to be responsive, and this is what we're talking about. So when it reaches a certain width, what should happen is it should make this hamburger menu for you. It's a little bit of work you have to do in order to do that. And that's all in here, like in the span right here with the toggler icon, etc. You'll also notice that there's a bunch of stuff, if you look on here, that starts with ARIA, ARIA. And all of that stuff that you see in there, for lack of better words, it all refers to that we want to make this responsive for people. We want to make it accessible for all, including people who have some kind of a documented disability, right? All right. So again, there's an example that for the brand, notice what they did in there is instead of, well, in addition to here company name, they also added a logo. You can do it anyway. Are dark, there's a nav bar light. See the difference when you look at them. You can also take a nav bar as they show here and give it a color. So if you wanted it to be blue, all right, again, you could do that. All right, and that's it for this one. So let's just continue on. So this was number 4 of 6, really of 7, but that's okay. Next is that Jumbotron. I will tell you in the example that we're going to look at, the one I'm going to build for you after our first break, I don't have a Jumbotron. A Jumbotron is never mandatory. All right. Could I have used a Jumbotron in the one that I did? Sure. Okay. Yes, we could have used a Jumbotron in it. Maybe it would have made more sense to do that. But as it says, The Jumbotron basically is a component thing. Right, so you're typically, again, if you remember from the lecture last week, this will be above the fold, all right, meaning it'll be somewhere near the top of the screen, typically right underneath your navigation bar. You'll have some kind of a Jumbotron if you're going to use one. And you can put anything in there you want. Here there's text, all right, plus there's a button. You can put an image in there. You can put an image and text in there, or whatever you want to, need to, or would like to put into the Jumbotron. All right, I mentioned the above the fold thing already, so I'm not going to talk about it, okay? All right. Some of the reasons that you might want to use a Jumbotron are shown here. Get the user's attention, pique their interest, give them an action to take, etc. All right. But if you look at this stuff, all the stuff that's in here is stuff that we talked about earlier on in the semester. And some people, when they create when they create a Jumbotron, they make it unbelievably simplistic. And some people, when they create a Jumbotron, make it unbelievably complex looking. And what I mean is exactly what's shown here. If you want to make it more complex, you can add animated graphics. You can add a video to it. You can add background images and or gradients. You can play around with the font size, etc. So there's a lot of things that can conceivably be done in here. Here is an example. All right, now notice the difference between these. All right, we've got in here, if you look, okay, this one here is taking up 100% of the width. That one is not. All right. And you might say, well, geez, I never want to do it like this. It depends on what the rest of your site looks like. Here's an example where they put a background image in it. All right. And he even included all of the different HTML, CSS, etc. that you need. And again, there's tons of examples out there in the documentation. All right. So let's see. Next are buttons. We've talked a little bit about the stuff in here with buttons. Again, this is another very, very short presentation. But when you start working with these, okay, as it says, they're easy to add. They can take boring HTML buttons and make them look a little nicer to work with. And you can use that styling with a lot of different things. And they work in all browsers. All right. So by default, when you create a button, it looks like this. When you create a hyperlink, it looks like that. You know this already. We've done this. All right. So you can go in and you can change a button to look, add any of these colors that we talked about before. Also, as you'll see in just a minute, when you, with buttons, there is a BTN LG class for large, which makes the button bigger by default. And there's a BTN S-SM class to make it small. Now, notice one thing about this. The width of the button by default, meaning unless you tell it otherwise, the width of the button is going to be predicated by whatever text you have in there. So you can see, for example, that secondary is a lot wider than info is, for example. All right. All right. You can have outline buttons. Okay. So when you put your mouse over them, they usually change color, not here because it's not programmed for such, but you can do that. Some people like the way that looks. I used one of them in the examples. You'll see it in just a bit. All right. As I mentioned before, large button, regular button, small button. And again, there's more examples in here. So the last one to talk to you about in here quickly are forms. All right, that's the last one in here. And again, not a real long presentation. All right, so if I come in here and I can do whatever I want to when I'm working with forms. Notice if you look at the bullets, and in particular the middle two bullets here, as it says, add the class of form control to elements like an input or a text area. Add the class form label to label elements. Also, you can use Bootstrap form validation without having to know JavaScript. So with the example that you see above, you can see the code there in the blue. You could create something that looked like this. All right. Not only that, it's going to automatically be responsive. So as you start to shrink it, it'll shrink accordingly. All right. The accessibility, again, the idea is with these ARIA attributes. All right, that if you do put those in, all right, again, think of it this way. If somebody is using your website and they're blind, they're already, and I don't say this to be mean, but you could look at it at least, they're already sort of at a disadvantage compared to a sighted person. All right, so you want to make it as easy for them to use the site as possible. All right. Sizing, as it says, what you're going to notice is controls by default typically are greedy. They'll try to take up as much room as they can. You can change that in a lot of different ways. You can play with widths, you can play with heights, you can disable things as they show right here. All right, here's a drop down. So if I were to click this, it's going to show 1, 2, and 3. The numbers that the things that are here, the words, that's what shows in the drop down. The things that are here after value, that's the way it actually gets stored internally. So it's not ONE, it's the number 1. It's not TWO, it's the number 2, etc. All right, here's checkboxes. So these are all the things that we learned how to make in the last, I don't know, week, couple weeks, whatever. All right. And it's how you incorporate them, in this case, using Bootstrap. All right. Same thing, radio buttons. All right. Now this is a little different. We don't have an equivalent of this in straight CSS, in straight HTML rather. This is a switch. You probably have seen something like this before, even if you don't think you have. Just basically it's in one of two states. It's on or it's off. All right. I mean, as an example, I've got that on my phone. If I go into my settings, and if I want to be able to have, I don't know, my Bluetooth on or my Bluetooth off type of an idea. All right. Layouts, as it says, you can give your form some structure without having to do a heck of a lot. All right. Layout continued with form grid if you want a little bit more structure in it. All right. Here's more. And again, with that validation. Okay. And this stuff is going to end up working with JavaScript to do your validation. All right, so that's it. Now we're going to take a break in just a couple minutes. I just wanted to show you something first, and that is this. I'm going to go out to Get Bootstrap. All right, and under the Get Bootstrap, I'm going to click on Docs. All right, and just to show you this quickly, because this isn't the way you typically do it, but I'm going to come in, and you've seen me do this before. I'm going to come in and I'm going to create a folder, and I'm just going to call it junk. All right. And in that junk folder, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to open it and I'm going to create in here a new text document that I'm going to call index.html. All right. You've seen this kind of thing before. And I'm going to open it up. I'm going to open the folder using code. All right. I'm going to come over to my index.html file. I'm going to put in here the exclamation point and hit tab. It's got my viewport thing, which again, we need this. We need this when we are working with Bootstrap. All right. And I'm just going to come in here and put in here Bootstrap simple demo. Okay. Just so you see this. All right. And why am I showing you this? Because I want to show you how simple it is to get started, even if basically you're a neophyte and you don't know anything. So that's kind of what I just did here. Rather than include those here, I'm going to grab these two CDN links. So I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to put this up. I'm going to put this up at the top of my program in the head section. So I'll put it right below the title. So there's that. All right, now that's not sufficient the way it is. I've got to say link rel equals style sheet. All right, and then I can say, and I can put this on a new line. All right, and I'll put in here href equals, and I'll have this, put that on the end. Okay, so what do we have? Again, we've got our link rel equals style sheet. I forgot to double quote there. Sorry. That's why it was underlined. And this is what it's doing. It's going out to basically, this is a different one, cdn.jsdeliver.net, but it's grabbing in here the Bootstrap min CSS file. Hopefully you remember with that file, that's a minified version of a file. We looked at this last week with jQuery. When something is minified, all of the white space has been removed from it. The advantage of doing that, all right, is that the file is much smaller in size because comments and unnecessary white space have been removed. The disadvantage of using that is if you try to look at it, you or I, it's going to look really terrible because stuff is just smashed together. All right, so that's the first one. All right, and let me come in here and let's view and let's word wrap. Like, I don't know if that makes it easier to see or harder, but the other one that we want to add then is this one. Now I want to show you two things about this file. All right, two things. The first is many people put this in their body section and they put it as the last line right before their ending body tag. So they put in script, source equals, then in double quotes, the name of that file. All right. And then their ending script tag. And you can do that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with doing it that way. All right. But some people like to put it up here. So why am I even taking the time to show you this? Because if you put it up here, and I put it there like this, let me move it over a little so it lines up with the other one. All right, so if I put it in here like this, then it expects that either I'm going to put in here the word defer or the word async, one of those two. And the reason that it expects that is what it's saying is, hey, make sure that the DOM has been loaded, everything's ready before you actually bring in this file. If you don't do that, so if you take this script tag that I'm showing here and you put it up in your head section and you do not put async or defer there, you might be trying to manipulate stuff in here before technically the system even knows it's there. So if you say, well, geez, how do I make sure that doesn't even happen? Then take this thing. Don't worry about the async. You can remove it and put it down here. You can do it either way. All right. But I just quickly wanted to show you something in here, and that is this. So now it's all set up. All right. So I'm going to go back into here and I'm going to go and under here. Let's see, where is it? There, I'm going to under components. All right. So I'm under the docs. All right, and I'm looking down here, and here's components, and I'm going to find under components, I'm going to find a nav bar. All right, now I'm going to grab this, the first example. So my nav bar is going to look just like this. All right, and I'm going to come in here and click copy it to the clipboard. All right, so it's been copied. And now I'm going to go back to my program here, and I'm going to paste it in. Now, I haven't changed anything. I think you'd agree with that. So nothing's been changed. So I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to bring this up in live server. And there it is. Okay, so I could change anything I wanted to change in here. I'm not going to change anything, but I'm just trying to show you this. So I've done this. All right, so now I've got all of that stuff in there. Okay, and it started with my nav. And somewhere down at the bottom here, there's the end of my nav. All right, so be kind of nice. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to come in here and do this. I'm just going to say right in here, nav bar. Okay, so I've got that. Now I'm going to come in here, and underneath that, I'm going to put in here Jumbotron. Okay, and then I'm going to go back out here, and I'm going to go back to my Get Bootstrap. All right. And I don't see Jumbotron in here, which means it's not considered a component. So I'll have to look for it. All right. It's in here someplace. All right. And I'm not sure where it is, but I'm going to keep looking until I find it. Okay. And let's do it this way. We'll come in here, and I'll just type in Bootstrap 5 Jumbotron, and I'll let the system find it for me. All right. And there it is. So it's under Get Bootstrap 5. And there's a Jumbotron example right there. And there's a bunch of examples. It says it's under the docs, but this is under the examples. That's not what I want. How to create one. I could do that in Stack Overflow. I can go to here. It's in one of these. Let's look at the W3 schools here. They've got a nice tutorial here too. All right. So I'm going to grab this whole thing that's in there. I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. All right. I'm going to come back to my file here, and I'm going to paste that in. All right. And let's save it. And let's take a look at it. So there's what I have so far. And again, I haven't added any of my own stuff. I've just grabbed a bunch of stuff that's already out there. All right, I want to do two more things. Next, oops, I'm going to put in a slot, well, a carousel. And after that, I'm going to put in a form. All right. So again, I'm going to come back in here just like I've been doing. And I'm going to look, not in here. Let me get rid of these. All right. And in here, probably under components, there's a carousel. All right. And there's some examples. I'm going to choose the one here with indicators that you see right here. All right. So I'm going to grab all of this. We could even put it with captions if we wanted, but I'm just going to grab the one that I grabbed. I'm grabbing that, and I'm coming back in here again and I'm pasting that in. All right. So again, let me do a file, save all, and let's look at this again. All right. Now it looks like I screwed up. All right. And maybe I've got the thing in here. I don't know why that's in there, but the point is this actually is working. I just don't have any images. All right, that's the problem. There are no images. So I could go out to pexels.com or unsplash.com or whatever and add myself some images. And boom, I'd have a slideshow. I'll do that during the break. All right. And then finally, let's look one more time. And I know it wasn't in here. There's forms. So I'm going to go to the overview for forms. And I'm going to go down and again, just grab this one right here. And here's the HTML. All right. And I'm going to put that in here. And I'm going to save it. And I'm going to come back up to here. And there's my form. Now it's not formatted, so it's pushed way over, etc. All right. But that's okay. All right. So you can see by literally just doing a lot of dragging and dropping all that you can do. Now, that's the good news. The bad news is if all you do is this boatload of dragging and dropping, you're probably not going to learn a whole heck of a lot doing it that way. All right. So what we're going to do after the break, and we're going to take the break in about 2 minutes, but after the break, I'm going to type and I'm going to type right in my HTML that we're going to create is going to have in it approximately 345 lines in it. And that's a lot to type. All right. And then what you're going to notice is when we go to our CSS, it's going to be real short. It's going to have less than 25 lines in it. It's going to have a media query in it where I put everything. So it's showed on a small screen. All right. And that's what we're going to do. Now, it may be hard for you to keep up with me if you're going to just start typing. All right. Or it may not be. If it's easier for you, just watch. But you're going to have to do this stuff. I'm just telling you. All right. So I've got 9:12 right now. Let's take 13 minutes and let's come back, please, at 9:25. And I'm going to pick it up right there. Okay. All right, it's 9:25, so I'm going to start back up just to show you real quickly what I did in this example that I was this simple demo. I went out to unsplash.com and grabbed 3 pictures of sunrises. All right, there they are. And I put those into that carousel, and all I did was where it had in there the source, it had dot, 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 and that was why we were getting garbage. So I put in, images slash sunrise 01, images slash sunrise 02, and images slash sunrise 03. In addition, I went back in and into the nav bar. I made it a dark nav bar, but I added BG dark so the text would be light. Just to show you, again, I've done virtually nothing myself on this. And now I've got this, and there's that sunrise. And I could play with the size. I just loaded in a really big one and told it not to do anything with it. All right. And again, we've got this form that doesn't do anything, but it hasn't been styled at all either. So there's a lot of different stuff we can do in here. This is an outline button. You'll notice it's green, but notice when I put my mouse over it, how it changes. So that's an outline button. And I could add anything I wanted here. I could remove anything I wanted here, etc. This was just meant to quickly show you something down and dirty, real cheap, all right, that you didn't have to do much in order to get it to work. All right, I'm going to keep my docs page up in case I needed to go back for anything. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to close this. All right, there's that junk. So I made a new folder that's called AWD Bootstrap 5. And inside of here, I copied over my images. These are the same images that we had for the Flexbox thing we did last week. So under home, there's the gentleman sitting there. There's the Rankin logo. There's a picture of the computer. There's somebody else in front of a computer. And in Teams, there's Evan, there's me, and there's Doug. All right. So, I mean, I'm just showing you what was in there. So I'm literally starting from scratch here. I don't even have an index file in here. I don't have a CSS folder, but I'm going to open this up right now with code and start working. So the first thing I'm going to do is come into here. All right. Come into here and I'm going to add a new file, which is going to be my index.html file. So that's first thing. And then next, I'm going to come into here and add a new folder. It'll be CSS. And inside of the CSS folder, I will add a new file, which will be my styles.css. I mean, that's typically how I start these things out. All right, I'm not going to put, well, let's put in here so we can see if we can communicate. I'll put in here background body, background color, we'll just put in red, just to make sure that we are able to communicate between these two files. All right, so let me do a file, save, and let me go back to here. I'm going to start this the way we always do, and that is with our exclamation point and tab. All right, and this will be for a title. I'm just going to call it AWD-Bootstrap. And the only thing I'm going to put in here for now is just a link tag. And for the rel equals style sheet, I'll put in here CSS/styles. Now, if this is working, when I run this, this should be totally empty, but it should have a red background. And it does. So those are communicating. Well, that's a start. All right. All right. So that's the first thing I wanted to do. And I want to make sure that my thing in here, my style comes last. So I'm going to go back in just like I showed you. I'm going to go into here and I'm going to go into Get Bootstrap and I'm going to go into the docs. And in here, I'm going to grab those two files, these two CDN links. So here's this one. And again, I'll need a link in here. I don't know why I didn't take it, but it didn't. Let's try it again. There we go. So rel equals style sheet, and for my href, just like I did before, I'm just moving this down, and let's go to view and turn on word wrap so you can see it. All right, so in here, there is the thing from cdnjsdeliver.net. All right, and I'm also going to add the other one, which was the script file. All right, and that too was from in here, so I'm going to grab this file. Okay, so I've got those two in here, and as I think I mentioned to you before, I also want to put in here the word async. You have to spell it right. Async. All right, and then end our script tag. Now, just to see if this is working or not, I'm going to go back to styles, and I'm going to remove this. I don't want this. Okay, so if I go back to here and run this, it should be totally empty with a white background now. Good. All right. Okay. But just to show you, I'm going to see if we can get this to work. For body here, I'm going to put in here class equal BG danger. All right. I think this should work. If it doesn't, okay, we'll have to do it another way, but that's fine. All right. So save. And let me look at it again. And it's red again, because I put a Bootstrap tag in here that said, hey, with your body, associate a class of BG danger, which is red. That's putting in a Bootstrap class right there. All right. Now, there's one more thing that I want to do before we really get into this, actually two. All right. And the first thing is, okay, we've come in here. I mean, I can go in and add comments, but I might make it a little bit too verbose here. But we added the Bootstrap min CSS, and we added the Bootstrap bundle. All right, we've added those two. Now, the other thing I want to do is I want to come in here and I want to, one thing you've done before, but the other thing I just want to show you. I removed that, so I thought I did, but I want to come in here and type in cdnjs.com, and I'm going to put in here font awesome, not fonts awesome, font awesome. All right, there it is. And I think I can add it like this, copying the link tag like this. At least that's what I'm trying to do here. Oops. All right, so that's font awesome that I've added right in here. Okay, again, I really don't need the integrity, all this other stuff. I'm just going to get rid of it. So it's a little easier for you to read. So I've now added font awesome. I've added my Bootstrap min CSS, and I've added my bundle. All right. One more thing that I want to add in here. All right. And it's very similar to Bootstrap. I'm sorry, to Font Awesome, but now come Bootstrap version 5, they've kind of improved their own icons. All right. So I'm going to add this. I don't know if I can get to it from here, but I'm going to try. And I don't need that anymore, but I want this. All right. And I'm going to put in here Bootstrap icons. All right. And I want to see if it's going to find it. Of course, I don't see it here. I thought that would allow me to see it, but all right, I'll manually type it in. It's a little bit of typing, but I don't care. Okay, let me close this. All right, so now what I've done in here is I have added, all right, the Bootstrap CSS file. I have added, well, let's do it in the order. Font Awesome, which gives me a bunch of icons. Bootstrap, which gives me more icons. I could have done one or the other, but I just did both. All right. The Bootstrap min CSS file and the Bootstrap bundle min.js file. All right. I am done right now with my head section. Okay. So let me do a file, save all, and go back to styles here. And let me save this. So now when I go back here and look at this, it shouldn't be red anymore. There we go. That's our file right now. Totally empty, but that's fine. All right. So let's start filling this in. All right. Now, I want you to understand something. I'm doing this today, and guess what? When we start tomorrow, I'm going to do another one. I'm literally going to create another site tomorrow that I haven't even started yet. I'm going to work on it this evening, and I'll show it to you tomorrow. All right. It'll be a little bit more complex than the one we're doing today, but it'll be along the same lines. Okay. So in my body, I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna say section ID equal home. All right. And what we're going to put in here is going to be the nav bar. Now, you know, I could go back in myself and just copy this in, which would make a lot more sense because what I'm about to type in is going to be about 35 lines. But as I type them in, it's going to allow me the chance to explain to you what I'm doing as I'm typing them in. Okay. So I'm going to come in here and do this. I'm going to add several Bootstrap classes here. Navbar, navbar expand. All right. Background dark, navbar dark. I'm going to put some padding all the way around it. And I'm going to make it fixed on the top of the screen. So it should not move. All right. So that's the beginning of my navbar. There's quite a bit more to type in, but I just wanted you to see that. All right. Again, if you want more of an explanation that I'm giving you, go out to getbootstrap.com, go down to components and look up navbar. And everything is explained in there in much more depth and breadth of coverage than I'm explaining it. All right. Now you should know this by now. If I do this, okay, works just fine. Not a problem. But there is a shortcut for this. If I just type in dot container and hit tab, does the same thing. All right. Okay. Well, I think I can just get away with just putting in a pound sign here, which means right where I am in this case. So, okay. So what have I put in here? I've got a div. It's got my navbar brand, which should automatically move that thing way over to the left. And it should be a picture of the Rankin logo. So let's see if what I've done so far, if it actually works. And there it is. There's my navbar. It's empty. And there's a picture of the logo. Now, when you look, I'm at 200% here. If I went down to 100, I can do that, but it's harder for you to see. So I'm making it a little bit bigger. Let's break it down. About 125 should be good. All right. So I've got that now. It's the first thing I wanted. Okay. Now, again, I'm just putting this in so that you can see it. All right. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to show or not, but I can tell you what this is doing. This in here is going to basically be creating our hamburger menu. All right. It's going to be working in conjunction with what I'm about to put down in just a minute, but I want to see if I don't know if it'll show or not on here. Right. It's not showing, but let's see. No, it's going to need the rest of the stuff that we're going to provide. I didn't know if it would show there or not. So, all right. So again, this is going to be allowed for us to be able to be set up for our hamburger menu, hamburger button, whatever you want to call that. All right. Now we're going to actually make our navigation menu right now. So again, if you want, put a line break there, and I can put another one in here. All right. Now, this is maybe the most important thing that I've told you so far, and that is this. This name right here, and you can call that whatever in the heck you want to call it, has to be the same name as what I'm about to put in right here. Notice it says the target is an ID of navbar supported content. That's what it's telling me. So what I want in here is I want to grab this, and now I want to actually say in here, ID equal navbar supported content. All right, just like that. Now, in here is, like I said, this is where I'm going to go in and add. I'm going to go in and add the actual navigation bar. Now, I'm going to purposely leave something off because I want you to see how this stuff works. All right, so in here, I'm going to say nav bar nav. I'm leaving something off there on purpose. And what's in there are nav items. Now, I want there to be 5 of these. I'm going to have home, info, about, team, and contact. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this that we just created, this LI right there, and I'm going to make 5 of them. Now, let's see, first of all, I got to change them, but let's see if it worked. All right, well, that ain't good. It should be showing me something here, and it's not. So we'll have to look at that in just a moment. Okay, all right. So let's see. We've got home. This next one will be info. The next one will be about. The next one will be team. And the last one will be contact. Now let me look in here. So we've got 1, 2, then our ending nav and our ending section. That's good. All right. I might be missing something up here. I don't know. I want to check because it should be showing and it wasn't showing, as you could see. Ah, nav bar dairy. That's not going to do much, is it? So let's see if now that helped. There it is. So there's our but you'll notice something about it. That is typically, I don't, there's a lot of area over here and everything is kind of put here. So I want to take these 5 things and move them over here. All right. And it is not hard at all to do. Literally, all I have to do is go down to my unordered list here. All right. And in my unordered list, I'm going to add another class. And that class is MS Auto. That should force everything that's there over to the right. And there you got it. So we're now done with the first part. We're done with our navigation section. That may not seem like much, but I think it's pretty good. It's a good start at least. All right. Then next, I want that picture of the computer. Remember, what we want this to look like is this. So we've got this so far. Now I want to bring in the picture of that computer. That's next. All right. So that is going to be what I call my showcase section. So I'm going to come down here and all right, this is very short. I'm going to put some top margin on here and I'm going to put some top padding on here. And those have to both be within there. Now, I'm going to purposely make this so it's going to look funky, but we'll fix it in just a moment. All right, that's all I'm putting in there is a div, and it should hopefully show the picture of the computer. So let's look. And there it is. Nope, that isn't it. That's it. It's bigger than I want it to be and looks a little out of focus. Doesn't look really good right now. All right. And it's trying to fill up as much of this as it can because that's what I've told it to do. So all I want to do in here is add another Bootstrap class that is called IMG Fluid, which basically, for lack of better words, pretty much tells the system, take up as much room as you can in here, but basically set it up so it scales, etc., and it looks decent. Let's see the difference. Whoa, it says computer pictures, so it doesn't like something. Images, home, showcase. And it's because I did it wrong, so let's fix it. I have to say here, class equals, because it's a Bootstrap class. IMG Fluid. That was my fault. Okay, so let's save it and look at it again. That looks a little bit better. It's not perfect. All right, we could scale this. We could do a bunch of stuff with it. But if you look, that's what we wanted. And that's at 100%. So if I look at this and bring this down to 100%, they're pretty much now mirror images of one another. All right, but again, I'm going to bump it up, like I said, to 150 so you can see everything. So that's first thing. So we made a showcase. I'm not worried about putting some text in there or anything else. I don't care. All right. The next thing that we want to do is we want to add the information. So again, if I go back to here, we've now got this, which is our nav bar. We also have our showcase, and now we want to go to here. If you remember when I did this Flexboxy, it wasn't in cards like this. So I want to use cards. All right. I want to use cards, and ideally, also what I want to do is I want to make one of these cards and then copy it 3 times. And then I'm just going to have to change either, if I want to, the icon that's here. The title I will change every time. The text I will change every time. Now, these buttons don't do anything, just so you know. All right. They don't do anything. All right. But they're just set up so I could link them to something if I wanted to. All right. Okay. So this is what we want to do next. So I've just finished my showcase section. So I'm going to put in another section, and we call that thing info. Not mine. I mean, that's the name that. So again, just so you know that we just did the showcase, which is our home, but this next section is going to be called info. Then we're going to have a section called about. Then we're going to have a section called team. Then we're going to have a section called contact. All right. Okay, so this is our info. Again, we'll add some padding. D5 is the most we can add. I'm going to give it an ID of info. We only have one on the page that says info like that. All right, let me move this up. And we'll start by making our container. So, all right. And in this container, well, I'm going to put in rows, and rows are going to have columns. So I'm going to start to use the grid system here. All right. All right. And inside of here, I'm going to put an H2 in. It's going to be bold. To do that here, I say class equal font weight bold, like that. Now, if I didn't want to do it like that, okay, if I didn't want to add the bootstrap in here directly, I could give that class an ID, or that H2, I could give it a class or an ID, and then go into my styles and put it in there as a font weight bold. All right, this is just the way I'm doing it because I'm trying to be as bootstrappy as I possibly can. So this will say the AWD course curriculum. All right. So if I look at that right now, it's not going to look like much. All right, we got the picture, and now we've got this, which was bolded. Okay, that's good. All right. I already told you this, but again, we've got a row in there, so now we're going to start making columns. Let me put the whole thing in. It's about, I don't know, about 10 lines, and then we'll go over it. one more thing, and then we're going to go over it. So, all right, let me save this. Let's look at it, see if it came up correctly. Okay. Now, I've only got one of them, so it's taking up all 12 positions. I'm going to eventually have 4 of them in here. All right. But what we added, this is a Bootstrap icon. You may or may not have seen that. We'll go back and look at it in just a moment. All right. But it's got BI in there. BI for Bootstrap icon. This is my card title. This is my card text. And this is my button. Now, I screwed up the button because it shouldn't be black, but we're going to fix it right now. All right. So going back in here, again, you can see I can't spell for blazes here. So that's now danger. So that button should now be red. There it is. Again, it's taking up the whole area. That's okay. We'll fix that in just a moment. But let's go over everything that's in here. All right. We are using a section with some padding and an ID, div with a class, row text danger. All right. Or text center rather. So the text should be centered. This, the AWD course curriculum should be bolded. Then, since it's a row, rows are made up of columns. Right now, we have only one column. We're telling it the background should be dark, and you saw how dark it was. The text should be light, so it's a little off-white. All right. Then we've got here div class equal. That doesn't look right. I guess it is right. H1. All right. So it'll be big. MB, margin bottom, 3. Then we're using the Bootstrap icon right there. Now notice this is a class. Just like the H1 class that we use, but this is Bootstrap's H1 class, which basically works the same way. Okay, so we're setting up our card, right? Our title for our card is going to be AWD Web Development Technologies. The text for our card will be the description of the course. Underneath that, we'll have a button which now goes nowhere, but it'll be red with white text and it'll say read more. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab everything that's in between this column right here in line 70, and I'm going to go down to, I think it's one more line here, right there. All right. And let's see, do I have 2 more above this? 1, 2, yes. All right. So now I'm going to grab this, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it in 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Now I probably screwed up the way this stuff is all lined up, but that's no biggie. What I want to see though is putting it in 3 times. Did that work? There they are. All right. Now it still isn't perfect, but notice I do have this. I'm going to have to go back in here now, and I'm going to have to change. I'll change the icon. This one and this one will have the same icon, and these two have the same icon. I'll have to change the titles. I'll have to change the text. All right. But if you look in here, pretty much looks the same way the other one does. The button's a little big, but I'm not worried about that right now. All right. Okay. So let's go back in here and start making our changes. So we had the first one, which was our AWD1000 Web Development Technologies. Okay, good. All right. Then we've got our next one. All right. And that one is going to be AWD 1100. And that is programming fundamentals with, that's an abbreviation for with, C#. All right. And for the text, we'll change that. Let's put a period on the end there. It's not necessary, but I like that. So we're going to change the text in here to this course offers an intro to C# programming. Example, object oriented and relational databases. All right, I'm not going to change anything else except instead of the laptop here, I'm going to change this to person square. All right, and let me save. All right, and let's take a look at it. That's the finished one. So we now have two different things in here. All right. Looks, as far as I can tell, it looks the way it's supposed to be looking. All right. All right. Let's do our third one, which is AWD 1111. And that is database driven web development. And we'll change this. All right. I'm going to keep that icon, the laptop. And then finally, I'm going to change the last one here. And that is same title, but it's 2. So, oops. All right, so let's take a look at what we have. All right, so they've all been changed now. Now, I haven't put anything in here to make this responsive, but let's see right now if we do take a look at it. It should be, I would say, probably it's going to be semi-responsive. Doesn't look great, but it doesn't look bad either. There's our hamburger menu. Let me move this over. Okay, and that's working too. Okay, so we've got those two done. I'm not sure why the buttons are the size they are. Don't see anything different than I've done here, but I'll look at that during our next break. All right, you can see the different icons. I didn't change that last icon. I want to again make that person square. And there's a lot more that you can choose from. All right. When I was doing this, I was just lazy, I guess. All right. So those two are now the same. Okay. So right now we have finished our navigation area, our showcase, and our info area. Like I said, I'll try to look at that during the break and see why don't know why that's the size it is, but it is. All right. So we've got home done and we've got info done, which means the next thing to do is our about. All right. So let's do that. I have a tendency to add a lot of padding when I'm doing this, just because I think it looks better when things are a little bit more spread out. Notice I'm putting in here too, a justify content between. Since that's a row again, here we're going to have columns. And the first thing I'm going to put in there is an image. I don't see it there, so let's see where that is. It is people, but I think I put image instead of images. Oh, I don't know why it's not finding that, but it doesn't look like it is right now. So all right, I want to see if it's finding that picture or not. And there it is. All right. Now it's hard to tell, but this will be cut in half because on the other half there, I'm going to put some text. All right. So that's good. All right. And again, you saw this was inside of a column. So after that column, I'm going to come in and make another column. All right. If I want this bolded, I can just come in here and say class equal FW dash bold, font weight bold. Now I'm going to put in here for the paragraph class equal lead. All right. And what that's going to do is it's going to take the verbiage in here, the paragraph size, and make it stand out a little more than it would typically. Okay. All right. And I took this right from the website. In fact, just so you don't have to watch me type, which is kind of a waste of both our times here. Oh, great. I've only, oh, this is the one. Try that again. That's the working one. There we go. All right. And then afterwards, put in a button. It's actually a hyperlink that's styled as a button. And this is going to go right to Rankin's page. Programs, application, web development. Hopefully I spelled that right. With a target equal blank. And let's give it a class too. So class equal, again, we want it to look like a button. Then this is the first time I'm adding, well, I guess not. I'm adding another Bootstrap icon class. All right, let's see if that worked, and we'll go back and take a look at it. Oh, that's bigger than I wanted it to be. I have to shrink that down a little bit, but I'm not going to worry about it at this second. All right. But what I want you to see is this. We put in this H2, we added that image, and then we added this text right here. All right. Now, if I want to shrink that down, let's just talk quickly about ways that we can do that too. All right. So one thing I did was I put in here P class equal lead. If I get rid of the lead, it should make that size smaller. Now it might be too small, but that's okay. Looks like it's pretty close at least. All right. So now I've got my additional information in there. Again, it isn't perfect. All right. I'd have to play around with it, but I haven't really done a whole heck of a lot here. All right. So what's next? Well, if I go to home, see, I can move up, info. I can move to my info, about. I can move to my about. It's not going down any further because I don't have the team and the contact stuff in here yet. All right. So let's do the team one next. And again, what's nice about this is what should happen is I should be able to take the column stuff and just create Evan and then copy it twice and then just change the name from Evan to Jeff with Jeff's description and then from Evan to Doug and then Doug's description. All right. And once we've got finished with that, We have our contact section and our footer. All right. And now that I'm looking at it, I don't think we're going to have as much typing as I thought. It'll be more like around 300 lines. So we're getting there. We're making progress. All right. Let's come back to here then. We just finished that section, so we're going to start another one. And again, this will be our team section. Move this up. Again, we're going to put in a row. One thing I didn't explain before was this thing. And I believe that G in there stands for gutter. And it's basically how much room you're going to want in between each one of these. So if I said G, and I think again, it goes from G1 to G5, might go to 6, I don't remember. But G1 would be the smallest amount, and G5, I think, is the largest amount. And again, we're going to have a column in here. Change this around just a little bit. And this is saying, even though there's 3 instructors on a medium-sized screen, put 2, make it 2 columns, and on a large size screen, it'll be 3, because 2 times 6 is 12, and 3 times 4 is 12. All right. We're using cards again. I'm going to round this by using class equal rounded circle. Again, with a little bit of margin bottom there and an image fluid. All right, let's make sure I didn't make any mistakes on this and look at it, see if we've got Evan's picture in there. There it is. Okay. And we want to put two more in here. So I'm going to copy this twice and then change it to me and to Doug. So I'm going to grab everything starting here with our column. I believe it goes down to right here. And let me paste it in twice. Looks like it's right at least. Let's see. Not sure if I've got too many there or not, but we'll find out in a moment. All right, let's save that and see if that's brought me in. And you can see it has. All right, so let's go back down here to Doug. I think I'm spelling Doug's name right. Well, something screwed up here, and that's okay. It's actually too wide in here. All right, and that's why it's looking the way that it's looking. So I goofed something up. Oh, wait a minute. We're saying here on that size, let's see, it might actually be correct. If we make it small, it should still be stacking. It is, although I lost my room in there. I don't know how I did that, but I did. Probably there's a div missing here. All right, I've got either one too many or one too few divs. That'd be my guess. All right, and that's probably what's screwed up. Let's see if I can jump. I don't really like the way that looks like that. So let's see. I'm just going to leave it like that. Let's see. Just make it 4. Still is too wide. I don't know what the problem is, but like I said, I'll have to look at it. All right, let's do the contact, then we'll take another break. I'll try to look at that during the break. Here's where we're building the form. I didn't do my roll. Hold on a moment. Lost my ending div tag there somehow. Okay. Now that should have the picture of the student on it. And there he is. Now over here, we want to actually go in and put in the form. Now this is going to take a bit of typing, and it's been close to an hour now since we've had a break. It is 10:31 or 10:32. Let's come back, please, at 10:45. I'll write this, and then we'll write the footer, and that'll be it. And then we'll talk about what we're doing tomorrow. So I'll see you at 10:45. Be right back. Hmm. All right, it's 10:45. I did discover one of my errors during the break. So if you look now, this is 3 across, and it's because I had a div in the wrong place. All right, and I was looking in there for the thing to see why those buttons were wrong, but I have not yet found that, so I will keep looking. I goofed that up. I made them all the same color where they should have been different, but we'll fix that very quickly, and then I'll write the form. That should be dark. And that one should be dark as well. There we go. Okay. So I want to come over into here and put in the form. Then finally at the bottom, I want to add a footer. All right, so let's do both those right now. I'm in my collection and I so far, and that's been it. All right, so that went in here as my first column. So I'm going to put in another column here. And like I said, it's kind of a pain in the butt, but not too bad, I guess. All right, now we have our form. And there are things that you can set for the form too. I kept it pretty simple. Everything's going to be inside of a div. So all right, that's the first one. Let's see how that came out. All right, enter names, a little light, but you can see it there. That looks like it's down too far, but will end up moving up. We had 4 fields in here, so I'm going to make 4 of these. Let's just do them one at a time. All right, so the second one will be email. can put a type in here of email. All right, let's check that one out. All right, so we now have the email. So we've got our two more to go. We've got phone and message. I didn't put in my ending div, it looks like. Okay. All right, and then finally, we want to put in our message. Now, I didn't take the time to do this, but there is a way to put in a text area in here too. I just kept it simple and used a regular text box. All right, so we've got that. Like I said, you can change the background color, etc. on this, or we could have changed the background of this. It doesn't look terrible the way it is. It probably could look nicer. And then let's add a submit button down on the bottom. And I made it a larger button with a BTNLG. And let's see what the final thing here looks like. And there's the form. Again, not perfect, but it doesn't look too bad. Finally, let's come in and put in our footer. There's not a lot in this, but this is the reason. It's the same footer, basically. It's the same footer as what we had for the other one. And I didn't take the time to look and see if Bootstrap had their own icons for Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. So I just grabbed the one that we had used previously. So, all right. So finally, And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to what I had done before. Is that I just want to find all those links. Right. I've got this a little goofed up here, so I'm just trying to figure it out. So let's see. Href, targets, and then NDA. So target is blank. Here. I'm trying to figure out what the problem is here. So target is blank. That's good. I, class equal fab, FA Facebook, FA2X, and that IA. I don't know what it doesn't like here, but it doesn't like. And this one seems to be okay. So see if it takes that. Okay. All right. And then finally, the copyright and whatever else was down there. So taking it from the top. All right. Everything looks okay. I did put in a very small um, styles.css file, so I'm going to give you that right now. But like I said, it doesn't look terrible the way it is. That's a little pushed over, but work on that, I guess. I don't know. I don't think nothing in here looks bad. We've got the hamburger menu, contact, team, about, info, and home. So that brought us there. So all that appears to be working. And like I said, let me come into the styles here. That's it. So this is the ending product. Again, I want to fix these buttons because I don't know what's wrong with them, but I will. All right. And as I shrink it, and I have to do something with that. That should be, yeah, that should be pushed over. I don't know what's wrong with that. The image fluid should have handled that, and it's not. So, all right. So the only thing that really looks poor on here is two things: the read more button and this image. So I'll have to fix both of those. All right, I'll try to do that by tomorrow and we'll start with that. Now, tomorrow I'm going to create one more of these. And what I'd like to do is to create something that also has some media in it. So something that has either a podcast and or video clips or maybe something from YouTube. I don't know. All right. It'll be whatever I can get to tonight, but we're going to make that. Then tomorrow, after we get done with that, because that'll probably, I'm going to guess, take until around 10 o'clock. All right. Then what you're going to get is you're going to get two exercises. Call them exercises, call them tests. I don't care. On Bootstrap, where you're going to create a single page similar to this one here, and you're going to create a 3-page website. All right. Just to show you as an example of a 3-page website. This is one I did for students. They didn't get the one I just did here for you last year. The one I did for them. Let's see. I did this one, and it's for a real pizza place that's out in Wentzville called Alfano's. All the stuff in here I made up, but you'll see that it has a carousel. It has cards. It has a map formatting in here. All right, but a thing for a newsletter, social media. All right, and it's got another page in here. So that's the home page. The about takes you here. Again, these are pictures I took off the internet. Somebody told me, what do you got pictures of? Is that Chris Pratt? And I think that's at Idris Elba, but they're just pictures I took out of the internet. And the rest of the bottom looks the same. Then a very simple contact form. All right. Okay, so tomorrow, like I said, I will go over, maybe I'll go over this one also so you can see it, but I'll go over a new one that I'm going to create from scratch a little bit later. All right, and then we'll go over this one, and I will make sure after that, we'll take a break after that time, and I will email everybody both of the exercises, tests, whatever, and you will have them Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday's classes to work on these. All right. And I know that Mr. Gegelman, who's doing this week also, and he's giving the students extra time to work on it. I don't know if he's doing it the way I'm doing it or not. I have no idea. But we are going to be testing it the same way. Then next week, at the beginning of the week, we're going to start on the JavaScript portion of the class, and that's what we'll do for the rest of the semester. All right. So like I said, it's up to me. I'm going to try right now to see if I can fix this when I make it smaller and fix these buttons in here as well. All right. But that's what I had for today. We're done a little bit early. All right. You know what you have to do, and that is to, I sent this out this morning, but just to go over it one more time. All right. So today we began our week-long study of Bootstrap 5. We went over the PowerPoints. I recreated the rank and AWD Flexbox site as a Bootstrap site. All right. So your chapters 11 through 19 written tests, that's 8 written tests, and your Halloween store examples, and you only have to do 11, 12, 13, and 14. So 4 of those. Those are all due by midnight next Sunday. So you have a little bit of time right now to work on those. Finally, and I mentioned this earlier today, I'm saying it again. All right. Earlier this semester, all right. I mean, some of you, I know people have been going out to the YouTube channel. I'll make sure to get you the link, but somewhere in here earlier in the semester, I did about a 45-minute presentation. There, get and GitHub demo once more, and I will put this one out there again. But as I mentioned, I want everyone who is in this class to be submitting their work using Git and GitHub. All right. And those of you who are still having problems, not to be crude, but you got to get over it. Watch this. Watch this 40-minute demo where I do things, the same stuff you'd be doing. And if you have questions, then it will be your responsibility then to let me know. All right. If I have to, I'll go over it again in class, but I really don't think I should have to. There's 13 of you in the class, and out of those 13, probably somewhere between 9 or 10 or 11 are turning in their stuff regularly using GitHub, Git and GitHub, and probably 3 or 4 people are still zipping their folders and sending them to me. I don't want that anymore. All right. It's been too hard to keep track of everything. So you may get an email from me today. It's on my system someplace. All right. Okay. Well, that's all I have this afternoon. My afternoon class is taking a test, so I'll literally be behind the computer working on grading your stuff. Oh, give me a break. Update your inside ranking, and as soon as I get done with that, I'm going to start on this next Bootstrap thing that we will go over tomorrow. All right. So if you do have questions this afternoon, I'll be online and I should be able to answer them. Other than that, that's all I have. Have a good rest of the day, and I will see you tomorrow at 8:05. Thank you.